Hey guys, looks like we got two in here. I may kind of BS a little bit to allow other people to get in here because this was kind of like one of those things where I was looking at the calendar here beside me uh, when I was getting near the end of my stream last night where I was doing the watch along for The Beast Within, and I was like, oh, this is the first Sunday of the month, so I owe the gang another watch along. So I kind of quickly decided to do one for Ghostkeeper, which I don't know how many of you, like the two of you that are in here right now, or if we have, a few more come in later. I don't know how many people have even seen Ghostkeeper. I know if Movie Junkie John shows up, I know for sure he has seen it. Anybody, as always, is welcome to click on the link to go backstage. If you want to join me live for this watch along, I'd be delighted to have anybody and everybody um, join me on here. As many people as we could get on here if you want. If not, I'll do this solo for whoever's enjoyment that's in here tonight. Hey, Apollos, you say, hey, Dana, never saw the movie, but it's on YouTube. Yes, actually, I have it queued up on YouTube. I have put the link in the chat as well for it. I just got the Blu-ray in, but as I always say, I'm a little bit of a lazy ass, so rather than hook up my the Blu-ray drive and do all that mumbo jumbo, I just usually try to find a link. And usually I have luck finding links on YouTube or Tubi possibly or something like that. Even the Internet Archive at some points and times. Occasionally I can't, but then like last night, I could not find a link to save my life for Beast Within, but John came up with one, and 71 also came up with one as well. So, I don't know if it depends on the way you search for these things or what. Maybe I just wasn't putting the right search terms in, and I wasn't able to pull up the things that some of the other people were pulling up. But we still had, in my opinion, a successful watch along. There was quite a few people in there last night. I think we had about 10 or 12, maybe possibly 13 at one time. And so, some of you may be thinking, gee, Dana, that's not a lot. When you see other people's streams and they've got 80 or 100 or more people in there, and I get that, and I'm glad that people are successful like that they get that many people, and if I get that many people, awesome. But honestly, there is no way I could keep up with the chat and be able to interact as much if we had that many in the chat. I mean, I say everybody's welcome. I don't want this to deter anybody and make you think, oh, well, she doesn't want me to come to her streams, or she doesn't want me to come in the chat. No, that's not it. Just a word of warning, if I ever do get that many, I probably won't be able to interact as much one-on-one with people as I do now when we have a smaller group of people. Apologies, I heard it's a Wendigo movie, which is pretty rare. Pet Cemetery is technically a Wendigo movie, at least in the book. You are correct, Apollos. But I will tell you, and maybe some of you guys watching along with me tonight will disagree with this statement once we get into watching the movie. But it does talk about or it has a blurb at the beginning of the movie when the movie starts. about the legend of the Wendigo. Um, but I just don't, I don't see where the Wendigo comes into play here. And maybe I'm missing something. You know, I, I mean, I guess technically if the Wendigo was possessing people or something like that, then yeah, maybe I could see that. But when we get in the movie, you'll maybe I can explain more what I mean by that. But again, if anybody wants to say, "Oh, Dana, you're incorrect on this," it's definitely a Wendigo movie because X, Y, Z. You know, and I would be cool with that. Because I miss things all the time in movies, and then when somebody says, "Hey, but did you look at it this way?" I'm like, "No, no, I didn't look at it that way." So, I am appreciative of anybody that um can nicely tell me, "Hey, did you ever think about this way?" Or, "Hey, maybe you missed something along the way." Because I'm human, I can. You look away for half a second, you might miss something. Um And I have been known, even movies I really, really enjoy, been known to zone out on them. So it's entirely possible that I could have missed some integral plot point that explains that, or explains the Wendigo in this place, or in this case. Sorry. So I promise I haven't been drinking anything other than I have this like big game or whatever energy drink. It's got a big buck on it, a deer, and I think it's like sour gummies. They aren't my favorite energy drinks, but I like them in a pinch. They're not horrible or anything. They're just not my ultimate favorite. Um, so I did want to tell everybody that I did, or I was in the process before I started the stream of watching my 4K of Pulp Fiction. It looks pretty amazing to me. Some people might disagree with me, and that's okay. That's cool. But I think it looks quite a bit better, in my opinion, than the Blu-ray. Now, again, if you have the ways and means to watch a 4K, I'm not telling you, oh yes, this is absolutely freaking fantastic. Go out and spend your money on it. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, in my personal opinion, it looks really, really good. The clarity's really good. The colors really pop. Um, and even though it doesn't have Dolby Atmos, which I know is not a big deal for a lot of people unless they have the sound system set up that allows them to do that. But the 5.1 sounds really, excuse me, really, really good on this release. So I would recommend it, but I'm not telling anybody to go out and spend their hard earned money on it. Um, and I did finish up the or refreshing my memory on the first season of the Twilight Zone from the 80s. And so soon, possibly tomorrow, depending on how things go at work, how busy we are at work, and how tired I get, taking phone calls and taking tickets and dealing with, different things. Um, I may do that stream tomorrow evening, probably around 8ish Eastern time. So uh, you guys can uh, you guys can look forward to that. If I don't do it Monday, I'll probably be doing it pretty soon because I've just refreshed myself on all the episodes. And basically, what I'll be doing is briefly breaking down each one of the episodes of that season. Then I have another set that has seasons 2 and 3 combined on it. And then once I get those all rewatched, I will cover that. And then I'll probably do Tales from the Dark Side, maybe Tales from the Crypt. I mean, there's any number. Friday the 13th, the series, Erie, Indiana, Monsters. There's a ton of different ones that I could do these little streams on. Apologies say Pulp Fiction is still Tarantino's best movie. I would like to see it in a theater. Yeah, I never got to see it in the theater, Apollos. I mean, Pulp Fiction is up there for me as far as Tarantino movies. But I just like so many of his. Um, Hey, John, you say, hey, Dana, hey, Apollo. Yeah, Atmos only matters if you got the host system and the height speakers. I think that Atmos selling gimmick means little to most. Yeah, I think so too, John. And that's why I wanted to make it plain that, yeah, that probably doesn't matter to the majority of people. And I'm not saying, oh, look at me because we got a Dolby Atmos setup. No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying I ended up investing in that, and that might not be something that everybody is interested in. I don't think Steve would have really been interested. I don't think he cares either way. I just, had the funds at the time to be able to purchase the Dolby Atmos setup, and so I thought, well, I'll just try it out. And not all movies that get released, even in 4K, have Dolby Atmos anyway. So it's we're at a stage where it's kind of a toss up whether you're going to get that or not. John, you said I'd like to come on, but I'm laying down. You're still sick. Oh, I hate to hear that, John. Um, so I can't remember. Like last night, did you say that you were sick with flu, or do you know what you have? Because I mean, I felt like I had the flu when I missed 3 days of work last week. But when I actually went to the little clinic, they tested me and said I didn't. Well, according to their test, I didn't have the flu, but that I had a upper respiratory infection. Which 9 times out of 10, every time I go, I don't want it to be anything worse, but that's usually what they always tell me. Yeah, so, feel free to watch along for as long as you feel like it. John, you say, no, for sure, Atmos is cool. I thought of doing it. I have a setup for vinyl now and do a 2.1 for office and 2 speakers for downstairs. Right now, I'm waiting on a Chinese integrated amp for my office. Ooh, that sounds interesting. You'll have to let me know how that goes. Apologies, say I got an old man living next to me. He'd probably punch off through the wall if I had a huge sound system. Yeah, unfortunately, that's that's a sad state of affairs when you live, uh, in an apartment complex or something like that, where you don't want to get noise complaints. And to be honest, even without Dolby Atmos, when Steve and I are watching movies through the day, I try not to play my movies too loud at night after Steve has gone to lie down for the night. But through the day, if we're watching anything, if it's like an action-packed movie or a superhero movie, and we've got that thing cranked up pretty dang loud. If one of us is outside, like I've been outside before when Steve was either watching an action type of movie or a superhero movie, and you can hear the windows rattling. So I totally get that some people their living arrangements are so that they can't really get the maximum benefit of a sound system. Yeah, I get that completely. Johnny said just a bad head cold. Becca has it too, but she's better, so I'm just chilling this weekend. So, John, do you have to? I mean, I know you're working from home, but um, do you think you're gonna feel like you know working, or do you think you're gonna take some time off? Because, usually I can, with me working from home, even if I'm feeling a little bit bad, I can work. But this last thing kind of took me down quite a bit, and I just didn't even feel like dragging myself back to my desk. So, I guess it could run either way. John, you sound what you call a budget audiophile. I keep it cheap. Well, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. Apology said, knowing what Steve watches, it's a wonder the police hasn't been called to your house. Yeah, Steve used to kid his mom. Before me and Steve were together, Steve, of course, was living alone, and sometimes his mom would come and visit him on the weekends and, sleep on the couch, or maybe Steve would sleep on the couch and let her have his bed or whatever. But there were shows that Steve did back when he was doing his Euro cult show by himself. That was like the original incarnation of the Euro cult show. He would sometimes like have his mom watch some of the stuff that all of us guys watch, and his mom would scream and stuff, and Steve would record it and put it on a show sometimes, and he would always kid his mom that somebody's going to call the cops if you don't quit screaming like that. Because I mean, dang, she was screaming pretty loud. Johnny say, "Yeah, I'll work saving up PTO for later in the year." Well, speaking of PTO, I was pleasantly surprised that I think this was just a pleasant surprise because I started work at this new job so late in the year, the end of November, that it didn't seem like I had to wait too long to get all of my days off for this time period, because it was prorated, and so I got maybe like 4 days, but then come January, I looked and I had over 100 hours of time off. So I'm thinking about, because I don't think this job gives me Martin Luther King Day off, but Steve is off. So I'm thinking about requesting off so I can be off with Steve next Monday. John, you say, I was looking up that movie Macabre you and Dirk and Darren were talking about. Some crazy stuff. What a plot. Yes. And what a movie. So, John, if you haven't seen that, and you want some really bizarre, entertaining movie to watch, Macabre would be one. I don't know if your wife would like it very, very well, but I mean, I guess you could ask her and see if she wanted to watch it. But I think with all that being said, we got like 6 people in here right now. So, um, John, do you have the movie queued up to watch, Apollos, or are you queued up? Since you guys are basically the ones that are chatting with me in here, um, I'll ask you guys and make sure you guys are queued up and ready to go. And whoever the other people are in here, um, that are not chatting, that's fine. That's all fine and good. But I just want to make sure the majority of you are queued up. So I'll give it another minute or two for any of you other people to get queued up. So John says he's queued up. Apollos is ready. So like I said, I'll give it another minute or so for those of you that are not currently chatting. If you want to get the movie queued up. And for anybody that comes in at any point in time and you want to come on live with me, I have the link in the chat for you to do that. I also have the link for the movie on YouTube if you need that. I always say you don't have to start at the beginning with me with these watch alongs. I've went, a few scenes into a movie, and then somebody has come on and said, "Hey, can I join you live? I'd like to join you live on here." and that is awesome. Now, if it's the last 5 minutes of the movie, I mean, I would have you on in a minute, but you might not get to enjoy it as much if it was that late. So so now it is 6:23. So I think we'll go ahead and do the countdown. I've got mine queued up to the very beginning. It's got 000 on the counter on YouTube. I've got my sound muted. If anybody comes in live with me and they don't want to mute their sound, that's perfectly fine. Um, so this is the FFF full free films version, and I kind of scanned through it earlier, and it didn't look like it had been edited or anything. So I think we should be good. So we'll do the countdown here. 3, 2, 1. Press play. So here's where it says, in the Indian legends of North America, there exists a creature called Wendigo, a ghost who lives on human flesh. So I was kind of late in the game of discovering Ghostkeeper. I don't think I watched Ghostkeeper until Steve and I got married. And I think Steve and I were talking about Canadian slashers or Canadian horror movies, and Steve said Ghostkeeper's one. And I was like, oh, okay. I never heard of that one. So, I think Steve may have had it on the hard drive or something. And that was basically how I watched it the first time around. And then I hadn't watched it for a long, long time. And then um, John brought it up, and now I got an ad in here. I'm just going to skip the ads when I can. Hopefully, it won't make it too out of sync with anybody that's using any other version. And I know even if all of us were watching it on YouTube, sometimes the ads come at different spots for different people. They don't, the ads don't all come up at the same spot. Now, I had like a pay for YouTube version. What was it? Was it YouTube Prime or something? I don't know, something like that. I had that for a while, but I thought, I don't know. I wasn't really utilizing all the features of it. But when I did have that, I didn't have ads because it cuts the ads out. So that is one perk of having that version of it. Maybe it was YouTube Premium. That's what it was. So this is indeed a New Year's Eve horror movie. For those of you looking to add another movie to your repertoire for New Year's Eve and New Year's. John, you say, did you or Steve get the Tenebrae vinyl from Waxwork? I need to get that if they ever repress it. I know I didn't, and I don't. Steve gets even less vinyl than I do, John. I'm the one in the family that's got all the vinyl. Really, Steve's got a handful of them. So, yeah, I don't think either one of us got that, but yeah, I would definitely like to pick it up if it gets repressed. Apology say any other movies based on Native American legends, the Manitou and the Prophecy come to mind. Yeah, I kind of put me on the spot there, Pauls, but that's okay. If somebody hadn't asked me, I probably could name some off, but at this point, I probably couldn't name them off unless I cheated and went to Google or something. Yeah, hey TJ, you say evil ads rise. By the way, I still gotta watch the new Evil Dead movie trailer. cannot stand this guy. I mean, I'm not saying anything about the actor that plays this guy, but the 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 main girl's boyfriend, this guy is such an asshole. And he's an asshole pretty much to everybody except for this blonde that's going to show up in a little bit who he I mean, you can tell the guy wants to get in her pants and he treats his girlfriend who's the brunette there like shit. And here comes the blonde. And upon looking at this, like when you're watching it, I told you I had no idea beforehand that it was a Canadian movie, but when you actually watch it, the look of it and all of that looks like a lot of other Canadian films from this time period that I've watched. Apologies, say I wouldn't mind being stalked by some killer if I could vacation here. Right. Yeah, damn ads. Yeah, I agree with you guys. Um, John, you said the girl reminds me of Nancy Loomis, aka Nancy Keys. Yeah, I never thought of that, but yeah, she does, John. Pause, you say I just got a pregnancy test ad. Talk about wrong audience. Also, bloody horror movies. Oh man, yeah, they're definitely not targeted ads. Yeah, John, I'm seeing that more and more just looking at her. She does remind me of Nancy Loomis. Maybe she's a her Canadian cousin or something. I don't think well, I know. I've never been on a snowmobile. Has anybody ever been on a snowmobile? Is it fun? I really like I mean, I know the look of the film is old, obviously, but I still like the look of it. Um And the version I'm watching on YouTube says it's a HD version, so I'm assuming that this is what my Blu-ray is going to look like when I finally get around to watching it. Which, of course, I don't mean to speak ill of the dead, but when Bill Olsen was alive, and this was a Code Red release, he would always, make it known that he got the best copy he could get, that, that was the only surviving version of films. And then he would do a little complaining and all that stuff. But he always did that. So I wasn't ever really sure if, he was telling the truth on that or he tried to cut corners or what, to save money. You just never know. I mean, this doesn't look like it's a bad print of it. I mean, there obviously is some damage. Um and probably Code Red could have cleaned this up a little bit more. But for the most part, I think it looks good. Apologies say every shopkeeper in these movies is suspicious and giving vague warnings. Yes, it's um the crazy Ralph thing all over again. Only these people don't appear to be crazy. They're just, like you say, suspicious and give warnings, albeit vague warnings, but they still give warnings. TJ, you say you've been on a jet ski. Um, I think Steve has too. Of course, he ended up on his face too. He told me so. And this is going to shortly be another example of young people going places that they shouldn't be going. They didn't listen to the shopkeeper, as Apollo said. And now they're going to end up soon in an area, if they haven't already, if I didn't miss it, where they go into an area where it's unknown. They're not really familiar with this area as it is. They're just up here for a New Year's Eve party, and I think this may be where they're like, well, this looks like a cool place. Let's go in here. And of course, uh, the brunette there, the one that looks like Nancy Loomis. Oh yeah, they did make the turn off. So now they're at I guess it's a hotel or resort of some sort. And of course the Nancy Loomis look alike. She didn't even want to make the turn off. And that's what this blonde gets for being like, she's sort of bitchy and stuff like that. And there she was showing off, and then she got thrown off her snowmobile. So, and I don't understand why this guy's got to be such an asshole. It's not like, I mean, he goes around acting like he's hot shit or something, and it's like he's not an ugly guy, but he's not like the most. He's basically the only guy you're going to see in this movie, so we get what we get. Other than the old woman's son is gonna show up in a few scenes, but and the shopkeeper who's an old guy, and people aren't really going to pay that much attention to him either. So we're stuck with this doofus, and he's definitely not a leading man type. Another commercial, or another ad, rather. I'll skip that ad. I think we were lucky that last real cold snap we had and had some snow, but we didn't get that much snow. I've walked in snow that deep before, though. You definitely don't want to get stuck out in snow like that. That's up to your waist or whatever. Apologies say long painting shots of nature to pad out the movie. I'm not complaining though. No, because it is like it would be one thing if it was like boring, and not beautiful looking, but it really, the look of this film is very beautiful, and the nature shots are beautiful. But now that you brought that up, Apollos, I will mention that a lot of people don't care for this movie because it's pretty much a slow burn. John, wouldn't you agree that it's a slow burn? And I think that's why a lot of people don't jump on board with this movie. John, you said, what kind of party is in the Canadian wilderness? Yeah. And it's like basically we're stuck with these three characters for the majority of the movie. And then, you have the shopkeeper, you have the old woman who's going to be in this hotel, you have her son that shows up, and I mean that's basically all you got. Very small cast in this movie. John, you say go into a party at the Hart family dungeon with Brett and Stu. Paul's you say craft dinner and maple syrup for hors d'oeuvres. I always liked turtlenecks like the brunette has on, but uh, Jenny's her name, I think, the brunette that looks like Nancy Loomis. But I always liked turtlenecks like Jenny's got on. But I could never wear them because they just drove me absolutely crazy. But I always wanted to be able to wear them because I thought they were pretty. I still like turtlenecks. Of course, we're in the day and age where you can pretty much wear whatever you want. Fashion is I don't know what you could really say about fashion nowadays. It's like I said, I guess it's whatever you want to wear. That's the style. And so everybody has their own individual style pretty much. Apologies say I just watched the Don't Be Afraid of the Dark remake for before the stream. It was fun, but the TV movie from the 70s is way more atmospheric and creepy. The TV movie is a lost art. Oh, I agree with that. TV movies used to be just awesome. There was one, and I probably mentioned this one before on streams, is Don't Go to Sleep. And I don't know if you've ever seen that one, Apollo's. Of course, Steve watched. I got him to watch it with me at one time. I had him download it, and we watched it, and he was like, But I always thought, Don't Go to Sleep is not as creepy now as it was when I was a kid. But I think it was like on television like 1982. But I don't think I watched it until it was like a rerun. It was re-showing on television like a few years after that. Because I would have been probably too young to be watching that on TV in 1982. I would have been probably what, 6 or something. So I don't think I watched it then. I think I was a little bit older when I watched it. But when I was a kid, that movie was creepy. Um, and now when I watch it, it still has creepy elements, but it's not quite as creepy as it was when I was a kid. But I do agree. I definitely agree with you that the TV movie is a lost art. Johnny saying the 80s slasher films in Canada were great. Now everything in Canada is shit on the CW. What happened? LOL. Yeah, I don't know, John. I was wondering. I've been wondering the same thing for several years. Um, it's like everything just went to shit. And Steve doesn't agree with me a lot of times, so I'm glad to see that some of you guys are kind of on the same track with me on that because yeah, 80s slasher films in Canada were great. Fantastic. They were, in my opinion, better than what we were putting out in the States. Um, I mean, there were good ones in the States, but I think Canada had us beat as far as horror films or slasher films in the 80s. Apologies say it's on my watch list. Sometimes the transfers keep me from watching some TV movies. I wish someone would release Dark Secret of Harvest Home on DVD because I love the book, but current copies are bad. Um, I think Steve has Dark Secret of Harvest Home, and I never have been able to watch all of it. I want to, but I always end up like not because it's boring, but just because I guess I picked the wrong times to watch it, and I'm tired, and I haven't gotten all the way through it. But I think the copy that Steve has downloaded is pretty decent. Um, so you might, I don't know if you download stuff, Apollos, but you might try some of the outlets that provide movies to download. Now, I'm not going to say it's entirely kosher to do that, of course, um, but it is an option. But I do think this Ghostkeeper movie, I don't feel like it's boring. I feel like it's full of atmosphere, actually. Um, and I think that's one of the things that makes it great. Now, here, this scene here, like, I don't think I've seen a shot exactly like this. And some people might say, well, Dana, it's what? It's a hanger in the door. But like, when she was coming up on the door and she could hear the sound and hear this banging back and forth, it's like, what is that? She's walking down this long hallway. It's dark, it's creepy. Um, and then the window is open in this cold of weather, and it's blowing snow in. Um, but that shot of the door almost reminds me of the original Evil Dead, when they pull. Oh, and then you've got this shot of the eye with the hair over the face and stuff like that. You're not sure who that is yet. Um, but back to what I was saying. That shot of the door banging with the hanger in the door almost reminds me or seems similar to the original Evil Dead when they first pull up to the cabin and the swing is banging against the cabin, and then all of a sudden it just stops. So I thought that scene and Evil Dead um, was that scene in Evil Dead were very similar. John, you say this and Curtains have similar setting and the same composer. Yeah, Paul Jaja did a lot of Canadian horror movies. Prom Night being one of them. Um, Also, didn't he do My Bloody Valentine? I wanted to say he did. Either him or Carl Zitter. And sometimes him and Carl Zitter worked on the same movies. I guess they would split the music or work together on the music or something like that. Well, good afternoon or good evening, Wesley. You say good afternoon, Dana Lynn. Never heard of this movie. Um, I hadn't really heard of it either, Wes, until Steve mentioned it to me, and this was after we were married. Which he says, speaking of which, with Evil Dead Rise coming out soon, it's time to do that watch along of the remake with your boys soon. LOL. Well, yeah. Anytime you guys are ready, I I'm ready to do it. Um, just let me know the date and time, and I'll be all over that. And again, here's more of this atmosphere of this movie of them. Some people don't like this, especially the new generation of people. And like I was reading what some people's thoughts on this movie, like in the comments on YouTube, and some people were saying it was just an awful movie. And some people may have watched it when it first came out because somebody said, where did that? Oh, I didn't know that Sherry McFadden, who plays Chrissy, Um, Died in 2015. She was 58. Somebody said that was awful and made no sense. Shining beats with no subtext. Creepy has to be earned. Um, and one person said the movie was boring 40 years ago and it's boring now. This was the days of Charlie's Angels and the flat behind boy body looking girls. Now, I don't know what that person's looking for, but somebody said Poltergeist is better. Somebody said this is an awful film. Somebody said not for me. Um, but then other people said it was a good, solid film. Looks like a good horror movie to watch. Uh, there was somebody that made a really good comment that I agreed with. Like, well, there were a couple of these I really agreed with. One person said, if you can, they were telling the person that has his channel, if you can put more on like that, then I would surely subscribe. I don't care much for new horror movies because they suck so bad. They're always about the same thing over and over. I like beautiful women, but them lost in the woods getting stabbed by a lunatic has been done so many times that it makes me want to vomit. The old ones are the best, no doubt. Um, I was trying to. Yeah, somebody else said people today don't appreciate the slow burn, atmospheric type of horror movie anymore. I recommend this, The Changeling and Ghost Story, if you like this one. So I just wanted to read a few of those comments off. TJ, you say Dana can hate watch it. LOL. Yeah, I'll rage watch it. Um, you guys might find that entertaining if I did that. Hey, Melect. Apology say it's doing a good job of building atmosphere, in my opinion. You also don't have a lot of dialogue scenes so far, which often reveals how bad the script is. Yeah, I agree. Now, the blonde Chrissy, she is to me that character is like the ultimate Miss Priss, entitled. Doesn't care who she hurts to get ahead or get what she wants, type of girl. And we saw a lot of you know most of the horror movies, especially slasher movies in the 80s, especially early 80s, typically had at least one character like that. I think it was part of the formula a little bit. So now we're going to get introduced to the old woman who evidently is the caretaker of this hotel. Um, and we are to assume, I guess, that eyeball with the eyes, the very dark eyes that were shown in an earlier scene with the hair over the eyes a little bit, was this a woman. Um, but I know she seems like a crazy old bat, and she was attacking the guy, but like they came into her domain, and like n- even even Jenny is kind of hateful towards her. Um, when at this point in time, I don't really think I have a reason to be hateful to her. Technically, she could kick their asses out back out in the snow and the cold. They kind of all three act like they're entitled to just come in onto somebody's property just because they were meddling in an area where they shouldn't have been. John, you say, yeah, this is not that bad. It's got good atmosphere. TJ, you say, I watched Terror Train 2 and I got a headache from my eyes constantly rolling around in my head. Yeah. Yeah, I was doing a lot of that too, TJ, when I watched it. I like the lady that plays the old woman. It actually makes me curious to see if she was on anything else. I'll look this up real quick here. Maybe here. I believe that's Georgie Collins is her real name. She didn't die until 2017. Actually, she was 91 when she died. Um, she had been acting and directing for over 50 years and is considered the grand dame of theater in her hometown of Calgary. Um, when she was still alive, she was currently semi-retired, enjoying her favorite role as a grandmother. So I was trying to look and see if she was in anything else. I mean, she was in some TV stuff like Gunsmoke and oh, she was in something called The Visitor, but it wasn't what I was thinking of. That's a romance movie. Um, she was on Ray Bradbury Theater, Lonesome Dove, the series, um, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, the TV show. Um, Not a whole lot that I'm familiar with. She was on Rad from 1986. Um, she played Luke's mom on there. So, a little trivia about Georgie Collins. Johnny said, looks like a relative of Mama Fratelli. Yeah, exactly. So, during these scenes here, she seems like the old woman seems semi-normal. Okay, now here's more of the asshole boyfriend. Like, I mean, you just expect him to just start jumping Chrissy's bones at any moment. I think the asshole boyfriend's name is Marty. Um, and here, I think this is where he's like the ultimate asshole. I think this scene right here, where, well, now I got another ad. Okay, now we're back to the movie. I think I'm gonna no subtitles, but basically, uh, Jenny's gonna ask Marty, "Do you wanna sleep with her?" And he won't ever, like, come out and answer, and it's almost like I said earlier today when we were doing the Eurocult show and we were talking about stuff that we have watched, I mentioned that it seems like Marty is gaslighting Jenny, because it comes to light that Jenny's mother, um, had mental illness, and, um, Marty keeps, kind of toying with her and saying, um, "You might be like your mother. You might be going crazy. You're worried about going crazy and all that." Um, and so just like that's a very seems like a blatant case of gaslighting right there. And she asked him at one point what he's going to do or where he's going to go, and he like very mockingly says, "I'm going to go into the bathroom. I'm going to turn the hot and cold water on or whatever." Yeah, I think this is where he's saying it. And that's not what she's wanting. She's wanting to know if he's going to go over to Chrissy's room and sleep with her instead. And then he calls her crazy. Um, he's like, "You're crazy," and she's like, "Don't call me that." And that now I think's where they get in the discussion about her mother. And the old woman is listening to outside to all of this as well, and seems to be getting some enjoyment out of this. But I'm not so sure at this point if Chrissy wants to sleep with Marty. And I kind of get the feeling that she's not interested really. She liked the flirting, but I don't think she actually wants to sleep with him. Is this old woman? Is she smoking a joint there? I just now realized that that looked like a joint. So for those of you that are fond of the female form, you're going to get to see a little bit of that here. Not for long, really, though, but because somebody is coming up the stairs now. We're not sure at this point who or what that is. She's very neat with her clothes, by the way. It's like she's sure taking a hell of a long time to get ready to take a bath. I mean, we didn't really see much flesh there from her. It was just kind of like flashes a little bit. Uh oh. So we're soon going to find out. I believe that the guy that was attacking Chrissy is the old woman's son. So most of the conversations with the old woman here um, happen between her and Jenny. Um, and near the end, there's going to be it's kind of a bizarre scene. And I didn't really know how to take the scene, and maybe John can help me out with that by letting me know what he thinks if he's still in here when we get to that point. Apologies, say I'm only 25 minutes in because of ads. I am 39:31, Apollos, if you want to, try to skip it ahead a little bit to sync up. Um, I've had a few ads too with mine. I will say again that this movie has a lot of is atmosphere. Um, and I think not all of us, but I think, and I'm taking the new generation out of this scenario because I think the majority of the new generation of, of the movie watching public is not. There might be a handful of them from the new generation that like films like this, that like that old school way of filming these movies. Um, but I do think that now, okay, I'm going to stop here and I'm going to talk about this where he's just slit her throat, and it seems to show another person who looks like the son, but it looks bizarrely mutated or something. So I don't know if that's like a reflection of the son seeing himself like that, if that's his true form, if he's the Wendigo, and Georgie Collins' character is the Ghostkeeper, of course, and um, I'm not sure how Brandon got back here, but Steve might have let him back here. But anyway, he got back here somehow. But maybe one of you guys that has seen this movie, one or more times can explain that to me. Um, I mean that's like a small thing. That's small potatoes, but it's just one of a couple of things that I was never really sure about with this movie. John, you say, so they ran out of money towards the end of it. That's what happened. Halfway through, they made it up each day and they went along. I got you. You say, check out the wiki on it. Some interesting stuff. Yeah, I'm going to have to look into that, John. But what I was going to say before I got sidetracked on that scene was that I think that not all of us old school people are like this, but I think some of us have lost the ability to appreciate movies made in this style. I think Steve has lost that a little bit because, early in our relationship and even early into our marriage, um, he still liked some of these movies. Now, it is very hard to get him to go back to these movies or to watch any new movie that may try to duplicate this style. Um, and he may disagree with me on that, but um, that is just my feelings about it. Now, this is another case of it's not really showing us anything, but it's very similar to the scene in Prom Night where Wendy, the character of Wendy, gets killed, and you know the killer has got an axe, but we don't see him penetrating her body with the axe. We just hear the chopping sound and hear the killer say, now, now. And I think that is just, in that case, it's very much more effective than if they had showed a bloody, corpse of Wendy that had been totally dismembered with the axe, or to actually see the penetration of the axe in the body. Because it's obvious that Prom Night's not that type of movie. It's not really a gore movie, and this movie isn't either. I don't feel like. Um, but that scene where you could see the shadow of the axe rising and falling, and you just know what's going on. You know that Chrissy's pretty much being chopped up at this point. Um, but I just think it's so effective. It's effective for this movie. It might not be effective to film it that way in all movies, but for a movie like this, I think it really, really works and is ultimately more satisfying than if they had just showed her Chrissy's corpse being dismembered with the axe. John, you said, I think the mutated brother guy is the Wendigo. Not sure. Okay. So is is he the brother of the other guy? Um, and then Brandon knocked over my light. That's why I really didn't want him back here, because that's what he does. Or, I'm thinking of a bunch of different scenarios in my mind, John. Like, is that is his brother, the guy's brother, a Wendigo, or did his brother get possessed by the Wendigo? I'm just thinking of all these different scenarios. But if they ran out of money towards the end, they may have been running low on money at this point in the movie as well, and so maybe that's why things are kind of a little bit choppy, I guess, maybe is the word for it. I'm going to go pick up my light and I'll be right back. Y'all probably aren't really watching the light at this point anyway. Um, you're probably watching the film. So, John, you said both are our sons. Okay, gotcha. Paul, you say modern audiences expect something to happen in every scene or have lots of edits to make it artificially interesting. I don't know if you've seen that scene from Bohemian Rhapsody with 50 cuts in 1 minute. Oh, yeah, but I liked Bohemian Rhapsody just, I think mainly because I'm so interested in Freddie Mercury and Queen as a band and all that. Otherwise, I may have not cared for it because I don't think Steve cared for it as much as I did. But again, he's not that interested in Freddie Mercury or Freddie Mercury's life or Queen for that matter. So Marty's going to get really pissed here because somebody's been screwing around with his snowmobile. Which, you big dummy, if y'all hadn't, come upon this place, of course, then we wouldn't have had a movie. But, you have to think of this stuff like they make all these stupid decisions and then they want to, blame somebody else because they made a stupid decision and came to this place and got themselves stuck in this situation. And now, it's not my fault. It's always somebody else's fault. I tell you though, besides that turtleneck, that is the most unflattering outfit for any woman, even if a woman had a good body. You really couldn't tell much about it with that snowsuit or whatever the heck that is on her. He's also at this point totally ignoring his girlfriend. So here's where he's kind of gonna ambush the old woman and you know like I mean, it's entirely possible that the old woman could have messed a snowmobile up, but take a look at her, guys. She's probably not going to be getting out in that cold and snow up to your waist and all that stuff just to screw around with this snowmobile. And he doesn't know about the sons at this point anyway. So it's as if he really does think that the old woman did that. That's pretty much the only teensy bit of affection he shows towards Jenny this whole movie right before he left. John, you say snowed in or isolated horror movies are always fun, even the bad ones like Deadly Manor, huh? Oh yeah, I find times to enjoy Deadly Manor. It's not one of my favorites, but I still get some enjoyment out of it. I mean, hell, I've watched Doom Asylum and Horror House on Highway 5 and all kinds of stuff. And when I got Horror House on Highway 5 on Blu-ray, Steve was like, God, why? He just didn't get it. But sometimes I get the most utterly atrocious movies just because I find some entertainment value in them. Apology say I'm not really a fan of biopics because they always get things wrong. Love and Mercy is about the only music biopic I like. Yeah, I get that, Apollos, and I've heard that about a lot of biopics that have come out. That they weren't really true to form. They didn't follow the true life story very well. Apology say foreplay in Canada is removing a lady's glove in her first of 5 layers of clothes. John, you say, LOL, see if he can scrap something up. He's going to scrap up parts for a snowmobile and a random elk lodge. Yeah, exactly. Exactly, John. Dude is optimistic. Yeah, he's an asshole, but he's an optimistic asshole, isn't he? Okay, so there's going to be a scene too coming up that I was a little bit confused about as well. And I even ran it back to try to catch why Marty is doing this. And I'll talk a little bit more when we actually get to that part. Um, and again, I don't know if it's Marty's just starting to lose his mind because of the situation is why he does it, or it's some sort of camouflage. But anyway, we'll get to that when it gets here. I like this scene coming up too, where she's sitting down and she's looking out the window, and gosh, another dang ad. I think it's coming up, and she's already drank some tea or coffee or something that the old woman has given her. And this shot, I just feel like this shot is simple, but it's almost genius here. I'll wait till it actually comes up because we're back to Marty looking for parts, and I'm like, John, I don't know what the hell he thought he was going to find here that was going to help him with the snowmobile problem. So, okay, so she's still drinking the tea or coffee or whatever. And at first she thinks she's just relaxing, but now she's starting to rub her head, and the film it's almost like it's playing with our eyes or our head too. It just seems almost like things are rippling. This scene to me is so effective. It's very it's almost can kind of make you nauseous watching it. It's almost like you're drugged too, along with her. And so now when she goes out of it, you can see the son standing there beside the old woman. Um, okay, here's something too. It's like, is Marty that stupid? I mean, that is obviously blood on that stump and on the axe, but then I guess he thinks that they just kill an animal or something because there's a deer hanging upside down, looking like it's ready to be field dressed. And then he just goes back out there to play with the damn snowmobile again. I don't even think this guy knows what the hell he's doing. I think he even makes a comment that he wouldn't even know what the hell to do with that anyway, with those tools. Georgie said the idea of an abandoned lodge with stuff still in it like this is cool. Yeah. You say, I wonder how many things like this are out there. Maybe not much in 2023. No, I think that was more, historically something that would have been around in late 70s, early to mid 80s. Apologies, I'm guessing they didn't have the costume budget to make a Yeti movie because it has all the trappings of one. Although the idea of a Wendigo possessing people reminds me of Horror Express. Exactly. Um, and I had read some things where I obviously the people talking about the movie had not seen the actual movie because they were referring to it as a Yeti movie, as a Bigfoot movie. I'm like, there's no Yeti, there's no Bigfoot in this movie. So I guess they assumed that Wendigo meant like Bigfoot, Yeti, something like that. I like this too. I guess it looks like an igloo or something of some sort, but it's almost like a maze or something. And I do think that this has a kind of a little bit of a Shining feel to it as well. So yeah, John, I can definitely see what you're talking about with them, because we're getting close. We're about an hour in, and this is not a very long movie where it seems like they're throwing everything into this picture but the kitchen sink. So now you got the guy chasing her with a chainsaw. I mean, it works. I find that all of this entertaining. But it did seem a little bit like they were just throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks, um, kind of deal here at this point. So now he's just kind of grabbing at her and like, oh, to hell with the chainsaw. I'm just gonna grab her and see what happens. This is gonna be a pretty cool death scene here, coming up shortly. It's kind of a quick and dirty shot too. Ah, dang ad. There we go. And then Marty just looks up like, duh, what's going on there? But I like this. I like this kill. That's one of my favorite kills because there's not a lot of blood in that, but I still like that. I like that imagery within this film. Another thing I'm thinking of, the friends that were at a cabin, like having a party, I guess maybe did they get too drunk and like forgot about these people? It's kind of like the Friday the 13th part two scenario where a lot of the counselors went to a bar and like they never I mean, it seemed that they, after they went to the bar and they drank a little bit and then they were going to go to another bar later, um nobody ever came to check back up on the counselors. So evidently their friends either weren't much of friends to these people, or they just all got wasted and just didn't think about them anymore or about where they had went or anything. Now Marty's back to being a hateful ass. And we're soon going to come up to the scene where I'm a little confused, and maybe John can help me with that. So now I guess the woman did go out in the snow long enough to blow up his snowmobile. Okay, yeah, this is what I don't understand. He's really not making sense at this point. I mean, maybe perhaps it is like some kind of camouflage, like he's going to go to war on this woman now because she blew up his snowmobile. See, he's put that grease or oil all over his face, like haphazardly put it on his face. Um, and I just never, even running it back a little bit, I never really understood what the point of this scene was. I mean, is that a symbol he's put on his face, or is he just haphazardly smeared this grease on his face? Yeah, you see some, shining elements in it too, Apollos. Johnny said, what this film missed was a couple more death scenes, too low body count. Yeah, it could have probably, it couldn't have hurt to put a couple more in there. Johnny said, I think what they were trying to do was mix a slasher film with The Shining and made shit up as the budget went away. This is probably their Here's a Johnny stuff. Johnny said, I'll bet they were going for that. Yeah, I could see them doing that. Apology says letter H for Hoosiers. It seems really at this point, Marty, earlier in the film, Marty was making a point to gaslight Jenny and make her feel like she was the crazy one. And now it looks more like he's the one who has not held up to the situation and has pretty much lost it at this point. He's no longer that cocky, nothing bothers me character. John, you said now why? Ha ha. Who knows? Shit's confusing. This movie has also been referred to as a haunted house movie, which I don't really consider it a haunted house movie. I know the movie is called Ghostkeeper, but I think it is pretty much like the ghost of the Wendigo, um, and not a haunted house movie in the traditional sense. And a lot of people probably aren't sure what to make of this movie, especially upon first viewing. Yeah, and now like these people all see the sign that says private property keep out, but as usual in these types of movies, they don't heed any kind of warnings. Apologies say or hoser, I guess. Hoosiers is a band. Apologies say it's hard to walk away from an argument at 5 feet of snow. Yes, it certainly is. You can try, but like it's like, dude, I mean, why are you freaking acting like this is her fault? You and Chrissy were the ones that wanted to go to this place anyway. You were the guys that insisted on going into private property and then getting stuck there. This didn't have anything to do with Jenny, and now you're going to punish her. And it just makes me want to punch that guy in the face. So, John, let me ask you this because you're still in here. The old guy that's walking around, is that the shopkeeper from the beginning, or is that a totally different character that they just introduced this late in the game? John, you say, imagine going to a party in the wilderness on a snowmobile with maybe 10 miles to the gallon and one minor mistake. Whoops, you're stranded and dead. Right. So, John, you say you think it's the shopkeeper. Okay, good. I'm glad they didn't like try to introduce a brand new character. Apologies, say he looks totally different to me. Maybe the maybe the original shopkeeper, like they couldn't afford to pay him, so he said, "I'm getting the hell out of here." So they had to bring another guy in. Or another thing was, I thought maybe he looks different because he's in all that snow get up. This even sort of reminds me of when Dick Halloran comes back to the hotel in The Shining. John, do you feel that way too? Does anybody else feel that way about that scene? Johnny said, "No, Jug, that's probably what happened. They lost Maine, hired a second guy to play him." Apology said the shopkeeper was a Wilford Brimley looking guy. Johnny said it got so bad they were going to stop production halfway through, so that explains the insanity and logic. Yeah, definitely. So coming up soon is actually, I mean, I like the movie overall as a whole, but the scenes with her and with Jenny and the old woman coming up here shortly is my favorite part of the movie and the most, I think, the most effective. And yeah, I know they were running out of money or had run out of money by that point, and they were kind of making up things as they went along. Um, but I just like the creepiness of it. Um, and it is very much like when the old woman completely goes batshit crazy in Funeral Home, like John says or has said about this movie. Is that or is that not the longest hallway ever? Apollos, you say it was different enough until the guy went crazy and that surprise death. Definite shining influence. John, you say, I'm shocked Funeral Home hasn't gotten a Vinegar Syndrome release. Yeah, that's a good question, John. I kind of wondered the similar thing. Uh, Not only about Funeral Home, but about other movies, because it's, and I wouldn't think with Funeral Home that it would be definitely not a music rights issue. Um, I mean, now with Terror on Tour, I wonder why somebody hasn't snatched that one up. And the only thing I can think of with Terror on Tour is that it's to do with the music, but I could be totally wrong on that. So somebody's finally doing something in this movie that makes sense. Somebody's loading a gun. So this is the scene that is really effective for me. Um, and it's still effective, even though I knew they were probably either really close to being out of money or they were completely out of money by this point. The only thing I'm kind of unsure of is, and they may not have any, there may not be any explanation because they may have just did what they had to do with it to get the movie finished. Um, and maybe the woman's just batshit crazy and she believes that she's Jenny's mother. But did any of you, like John, did you ever think that there could be a possibility that this old woman could be Jenny's crazy mother? Or do you think that this was just a woman just she had heard the conversation that Jenny had had with Marty earlier, and in her crazy mind, she's just kind of using that for her own gain. Um, but either way, I still think this is creepy because she's like, "Come to mother, Jenny," and she's just, you know. But it is definitely my favorite scene in the movie. Apologies, I didn't realize there was music in this movie until that violins thing. Um, Must be a public domain track. John, you say, I'm not sure. I think she was just crazy, honestly. Probably so. So we kind of maybe get the idea, or I get the idea that at this point, Jenny may have lost her mind. She may have went over the edge, and now she's going to be the ghost keeper. Is the way I take it to be. Um, because there we're seeing the Wendigo. And she's not screaming. She's not acting like she's afraid at all. She just simply closes the door at that point. Here I got a dang ad right at the end of the movie. Okay, this seems to me to be a Shining. This is very Shining-esque as well. Of Marty. Evidently, Marty is frozen out there, sitting propped up against the tree. And this to me is very reminiscent of Jack Torrance's character in The Shining when he gets lost in the maze and freezes to death. So we're nearing the end of the movie. Like I said, this is not a very long movie at all, which is another reason why I picked it for this Sunday watch along, as well as it being a New Year's Eve related type of horror movie. I do want to remind everybody that I'm going to be coming up with some more movies to do on Saturdays for the upcoming Saturdays of this month. Um, I'll see what kind I can pull out to do watch alongs for, so you guys can look forward to those. Um, and other than the other things, the My Dinner with the Palma, the upcoming like horror television series episode breakdowns. Who knows? I may come up with some other stuff as well um, for anybody to watch that is interested. So yeah, I really think at this point that's what the ending of this movie indicates to me is that she's going to take on the role of Ghostkeeper now. So now we're to the official end of this movie. Um, let's see. John, you said, I don't see any pattern of her being related. Otherwise, the brothers wouldn't have tried to kill her. Probably not. And John, you say, yeah, it sounds like she's just lost it. Maybe like that old lady lost it before her. Yeah, Pauls, I agree. That shot through the window with the melting snow was cool. Johnny said, so she's speaking like The Rock. Should have been nice to Jenny. Yeah, that is an eerie scene too. Yes, Pauls. Yeah, I noticed that you could see the guy breathing too. I'm assuming though that he was supposed to be dead. He was supposed to be frozen, but some people are good at hiding that on camera, and other people are not. Hey, Blair, it's good to see you in here. Apology say I can definitely see this making an impression on me if I had watched it as a kid. Yeah, I think this probably, if I had watched it as a kid instead of watching it much later in life, it probably would have made more of an impression. But, I still enjoy it. I still see me going back to it occasionally, which is why I bought the Blu-ray of it. But definitely, if you don't own it and you're considering getting it, keep in mind that I believe it is out of print. Um, and you can probably find it on eBay. But I would definitely find a good price on it. I wouldn't suggest that anybody, unless you're really, really wanting that thing, to pay 80 or more dollars for it, which is what I've seen it go for a lot of times on eBay. Um, but so I'm going to turn that off there. So I hate to get out of here, especially since Blair just came on at the end of the movie, but I'm probably going to call it an early night because it is Sunday and most of us got to work in the morning. Uh, Even if you're working from home, you still got to get up early and go back to your desk or whatever. Um, and sometimes, hey, we just don't. It's Monday morning. It's like, you don't want to get up in the morning. So I always try to make these Sunday watch alongs early. I start them at 6, and try to pick a relatively short movie, not a really long movie to do this on. But again, I want to thank all of you guys that came in here and chatted along with me while watching the movie. Um, and Be on the lookout for some other watch alongs that I'm going to be having come up on the remaining Saturdays in January. And of course, keep in mind the first weekend of February, you will get a double one. You will get one on Saturday and you will get one on Sunday, barring anything happening like me getting sick or anything like that. Johnny said, I did watch Evil Laugh earlier. It wasn't too bad. Very Scream reminiscent. Yeah, yeah, I could see that, especially with the Barney character. You're welcome, Apollos. Well, thank you, John. I appreciate that. Um, but with all that being said, guys, I'm going to skedaddle on out of here for the night, and I will see everyone on the flip side. Y'all have a good night now.